They told him to stand up, said that seat wasn't meant for someone like him. A quiet black man sitting in business class exposed the hidden truth of an entire system, simply by being there. The head flight attendant, pale face and bright red lipstick, pointed her finger just inches from his nose. "Passengers like you don't have tickets for this section," she snapped. Behind him, a white CO watched with a smug grin. The whole cabin went silent. No one said a word, because in their eyes, a black man didn't belong in their space. Then came the sound of heavy boots outside. A line of military trucks rolled up next to the plane, and the man they came for, still calm, still sitting in seat 2A. He didn't yell. He didn't argue. He simply looked at them and made them lower their heads in shame. This story isn't just about skin color. It's about how people judge others without ever asking who they really are. Early that morning at Orly Airport in Paris, the air was sharp and cold. Sunlight hadn't yet broken through the foggy glass windows. Suitcases rolled softly over the floor as a man of color stepped into the waiting area. His coat was old and gray. His sneakers were worn out. A plain canvas backpack with no brand hung from his shoulder. He moved slowly. He didn't rush. No one noticed him. Just another quiet African traveler blending into background. He chose a plastic chair by the window, sat gently, pulled out his phone, and calmly read his emails. Security guards walked by. They didn't stop. A group of businessmen laughed loudly about new mining deals in Central Africa. Not one of them spared him a glance. He looked like nobody special. But what they didn't know was this. His name was Ibrahim Traoré, President of Burkina Faso. He was returning from an important summit in Brussels about gold mining rights and Africa's economic freedom. This flight was a journey home for a leader. No crown, no bodyguards, because Ibrahim believes true power doesn't need to show off. Real power stays steady and silent in the hands of the right person. When boarding started, the cabin was still quiet. High heels clicked. Luggage wheels rattled. The usual boarding announcements echoed like any other day. Then a man stormed into the priority line. He looked angry, his face red, footsteps fast. His name was Luc Morrel, 55, CEO of a giant energy company working in over 12 African countries. A custom navy suit, deep red silk tie, silver glasses perched neatly on a sharp nose. He was late, and when staff told him business class was full, he just stood there frozen, refusing to believe it. "I'm a strategic partner of Burkina Faso," he snapped. "You expect me to sit in economy?" Luke snapped. "Who made that stupid decision?" A quick phone call was made. An email forwarded. A legal threat thrown out like an everyday trick. Minutes later, the ground crew looked nervous. They spoke into their walkie-talkies, voices tense. Finally, they agreed. Call the chief flight attendant. Ask her to handle it quietly. Maybe someone in business class could be convinced to switch seats. That's when Lucien arrived. Even from far away, she drew attention, not because of her rank, but her attitude. Lucien Arnaud, 48, senior international flight attendant. White, broad-shouldered, heavy-set. Each step she took landed hard, pressing into the carpet. Her makeup was thick. Her lipstick, a bold red, looked like it owned the whole cabin. Her blonde hair was pulled tight into a neat bun. Not a strand out of place, not a nerve unstrained. When told that a VIP needed a seat, Lucien didn't check who it was. She didn't check the list. She strode straight into business class, eyes scanning until they locked on row 2. There sat Ibrahim Traoré in his plain gray coat, calmly reading the news on his phone. He had no idea he was about to be singled out. Lucien peeked at the boarding pass in her hand. She didn't double-check. She didn't think twice. To her, he simply didn't look like he belonged in business class. Lucien stood in front of Ibrahim. She didn't ask his name. She didn't pull up the system. "Sir, because of a scheduling problem, we need to rearrange some seats. Could you move to economy, please?" Ibrahim lifted his eyes, calm and steady. No anger, no surprise. He reached into his coat, took out his ticket, and handed it to her softly. Business class, seat 2, a top priority seat. Lucien glanced at it for barely 2 seconds. Then she looked back at him with a silent message in her eyes. You don't belong here. She handed the ticket back without a thank you or an apology. She turned and walked away, trying to look professional, but her eyes showed it all. Clear contempt. What she didn't know was that the man she just judged for his old coat had the final say over a 300 million euro gas deal her own country was begging for. Lucien returned to seat 2A. The same calm face waited for her. He sat there, steady, silent. She stood straight, hands folded, acting polite. Ibrahim looked up, met her eyes, soft, steady, no tension, and asked, in a voice barely above a whisper, "Why did you choose me?" Lucien blinked. She hadn't expected him to question her, and so gently. "Oh, nothing personal, sir," she said, trying to sound smooth. "Just a small seating change to balance the cabin." Ibrahim tilted his head, his eyes never leaving hers. "Then you should ask everyone, not just me." Silence fell, heavy, suffocating. Lucien held her breath, forced a fake smile, and turned away. "These people always make everything difficult," she muttered under her breath. Not loud enough for a microphone, but clear enough for the people 2 rows behind to hear. An African nurse leaned toward the woman sitting next to her and whispered, "They have no idea who that man really is." Her friend peeked over, eyes narrowing. He looked so ordinary, but something about him. No one wants to mess with him. A moment later, Lucien flipped open the passenger list again. Her finger moved quickly down the names, picking targets. This time there were no polite questions, no excuses. Only passengers with dark skin were quietly asked to help out by moving seats. Lucien was hunting for more people to push back to economy, and they all had one thing in common: their skin color, their quietness, and the fact that no one powerful would stand up for them. She came back once more. She had just forced a young black man to move. No reason given, no apology offered. Now she stood again in front of Ibrahim. She didn't say a word this time. No request, no demand. Just stood there, expecting him to get up and leave like he should know his place. But this time, Ibrahim rose to his feet, not in anger, not to fight. He simply stood, tall, calm, steady, and he looked at her, really looked, so deeply that Lucien felt exposed, as if he could see straight through her uniform, her fake smile, and all the company rules she used as armor. No one in the cabin dared to speak. A woman's gum stopped mid-chew. A businessman across the aisle slowly lowered his tiny espresso cup. Lucien didn't feel like a flight attendant anymore. She felt like someone caught pretending to be more than she was. Then Ibrahim spoke. Quiet, slow. Each word hit her like a heavy knock on her chest. To judge someone by their skin is to brag about your own ignorance. Lucien said nothing. A chill crawled up her back, though the air hadn't changed. She turned and left, not because she realized she was wrong, but because she had no words left to defend herself. Ibrahim sat down again. He didn't say another word. He didn't need to. Right then, Luc Morrel, the French CEO, strutted into the cabin. A white napkin laid across his seat. A glass of sparkling wine placed gently in his hand. Lucien gave him her best smile yet. "Monsieur Morrel, bienvenue. Your seat is ready." What she didn't know was this. She had just pushed the head of state aside to make space for the very man whose company would soon be banned from Burkina Faso by that same head of state. The plane began its descent. Out the window, the red earth of Burkina Faso came into view under the burning dawn light. Dry forests, rusty tin rooftops shining under the rising sun. A long line of black SUVs waited neatly by the runway. Luc Morrel smirked, straightened his tie, and said to Lucien, "Ah, looks like my welcome team is here." He lifted his brows like he was about to walk down a red carpet. Inside the cabin, people rushed to pack up for landing. Crew hurried to their spots. Lucien frowned. Something didn't feel right. The wheels had barely touched down when a unit of officers in black uniforms marched onto the runway. A hush spread through the cabin. A senior officer stepped in, stiff posture, serious face. He didn't stop at the door, didn't ask anyone for directions. He walked straight to seat 2A, stopped, raised his hand in a sharp salute. and spoke with a voice that sliced the silence in half. "Mr. President, welcome home." A gasp swept through the plane. A wine glass slipped from someone's hand and shattered. Lucien stood frozen. Her fingers gripped the passenger list so tightly that it slipped from her hand and landed on the floor. Luc Morrel jumped up, not because he was called, but because he wasn't. His face turned ghostly pale. "President," he stammered, staring at the man he and Lucien had quietly looked down on the whole flight. Ibrahim was still seated, calm as ever. He didn't look around for praise or revenge. He just stood up, buttoned his coat, nodded at the officer, and in that moment, everyone in business class lowered their heads. No one told them to. No one dared not to. True power needs no commands. It quiets the room by existing. The plane stairs barely touched the ground when orders were given. Lucien, still trying to understand what she'd done, was told to leave the plane first. She walked down the steps slowly, each step heavier than the last. Her bright red lipstick had smudged with sweat. The cold sharpness in her eyes was gone, replaced by a blank, empty stare. Luc Morrel followed after her. No longer a powerful CEO, just another man in a suit, flanked by 4 officers. His face was ashen. Burkina Faso security team met them right on the runway. No shouting, no handcuffs, just a clear message. Insulting the representative of a president will be investigated properly, in daylight, under the law. Later that day, the airline posted a statement. "We deeply apologize for the incident on Flight AF872. Respect for every customer is our top priority. We are reviewing our staff training." Empty words. Too little, too late. But the internet was faster. Hashtag respect Africa. Hashtag she said into a. Hashtag Lucien must apologize. Passengers' clips went viral. Lucien glaring at Ibrahim. Luc's smug face when he took the seat. And finally, the officer saluting, "Mr. President." At a short press talk with African reporters, a French journalist asked, "Mr. President, will you press charges?" Ibrahim smiled slightly, but the smile carried weight. "I don't want them punished. I want them to learn to see people, not through bias, but with human eyes." No one had anything left to say. The next morning, Ibrahim Traoré showed up at the presidential palace on time. No interviews, no media fuss, no mention of yesterday's flight. He met with his ministers, reviewed farming development plans, answered a student's question at Ouaga University about Africa's path to independence, and smiled quietly when his aide handed him coffee. No sugar, just how he liked it. No one spoke about the flight, but the whole country knew, and so did the world. Lucien was suspended. Luc Morrel lost the biggest energy deal in West Africa in 15 years. The airline launched a new respect and diversity campaign, but none of the apologies came from fear. They came because everyone finally understood. The quiet of someone who knows exactly who they are will always make those who think they're better bow their heads in shame.